Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Mella and today I am painting some fish in watercolor. Fish home to Andalusia to be exact. So grab either your art supplies and paint along with me or a cup of your favorite beverage to join me for this painting process. So my parents have a couple of empty frames to fill and they asked me whether I could paint them something. So I said, yeah, of course, why not? I had painted them some pictures for Christmas and they absolutely loved them, and I'm always looking for a good excuse to paint something, so here we are. I actually sometimes have the hardest time coming up with what to paint, so my parents asking me was actually really helpful. For this picture, I thought I would paint some fish from Andalusia. Why? Because my parents like Andalusia and I like painting fish. I think that fish are actually really fun to paint. So I did some research on what kind of fish can be found around Andalusia or the south of Spain, and I sketched them first in my sketchbook to kind of get an idea of what their shapes are, how they look like in comparison to each other, and also what their color stories are. I wanted a kind of variety of colors that still looked harmonious together and not just paint like four fish in the same color, because that would be very boring and not an interesting picture to look at or to paint. Throughout the process, I actually ended up picking three fish. The bluefin tuna, which had beautiful light and dark blue tones, the Iberian gudgeon, where I used one of my all-time favorite watercolors, which is quinacridone gold from Sennelier, and finally the Atlantic bonito, which was a kind of more grayish color, so it brought back the kind of cooler color as opposed to the Iberian gudgeon, which I put in the middle. So we have a cool toned fish at the top and at the bottom, and then the Iberian gudgeon as the fish that kind of brings warmth into the picture. And I hope that these fish are actually all from around Andalusia. I did get kind of lost in all of the fish that exist, and they also kind of swim all over the place, and the ocean is extremely big. But I ended up deciding on these three fish, and if they're not home to Andalusia or the south of Spain or the Strait of Gibraltar, let's just pretend that they are, because fish swim all over the place and they could have gone to the south of Spain for a very nice fish vacation. So they are from Spain. I'm just saying that now. So the way I'm doing this is that first I do the base of the fish and then I add the details later. I added glittery paint into every base color so they would kind of have this shimmer depending on how the sun reflects the light on them, because that's half the fun of fish. You can use shimmer in them. Starting with the bluefin tuna, which I put at the top, I went in with a layer of plain water at first, and then I let the paint color kind of flow into it to get a smooth transition, because the tuna has this light stripe, so to say, in the middle of it. And then I added the fins with some yellow details and let that dry. Next up, we have the Iberian gudgeon, for which I used my absolute favorite watercolor, which is the quinacridone gold from Sennelier. I also added a little bit of gold into it to get the shimmer of the fish, and then I just painted the entire base of the fish. I just adore the quinacridone gold because it's the right amount of yellow and warmth for me without being too yellow, if that makes any sense. I dabbed a little bit more intensive color of the quinacridone gold. Oh my gosh, say that 5 times fast. Such a hard name to say. One of my favorite colors, though. I dabbed more of it where I needed it to kind of, make the transition between the body of the fish and the fin feel more connected to each other. I felt like that was one of the parts that I struggled with the most throughout this painting. And lastly, we have the Atlantic Bonito, I think it is pronounced. Its base is a neutral tint with a bit of glitter paint added, like we did with the others. And then I dabbed some color in the middle and darkened it around the edges. I did this all while the base was still wet to get natural transitions between the colors and also no harsh edges because we don't want them there. They come in at the second layer. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy painting fish so much. And I think they're a good practice for the wet on wet technique. Since the space on which you're doing the wet on wet technique is kind of limited, it's quite easy to control while also letting the paints and the water do their own thing and kind of use it as a learning tool how the water and the paint interact with each other on a limited space, if that makes sense. Plus, I just love to watch the color flow. I think this looks so cool, and watching this back, I am kind of mesmerized by the different kind of textures that appear as the color is added and the water is added. And I love that watercolor has a mind of its own. I think it's one of my favorite things about watercolor. I like to work with that and not push the watercolor into doing exactly as I want. I like that it's doing its own thing within the limitations that I'm trying to give to it, of course. Anyway, we're now starting to add the details to the fishies, and I'm doing that on the dried base. Like we're trying to add the fins that they have on the side and adding the illusion of them having scales by dabbing dots on the fish or adding lines to the fins. Actually, rewatching this video as I'm doing this voiceover makes me want to paint some fish again. I'm just wondering, do you have any cool ideas for fish? Because I would love to paint some more tropical ones, I think, with brighter colors and turquoises and pinks and oranges. Maybe even branch out and try some jellyfish or crabs or seahorses or something. I could make another themed page like this in my sketchbook, I think. Because obviously we are always evolving with our skills. I don't want to say I'm better than last year when I painted this picture, but I feel like I'm more confident in my choices in how to use watercolor and how to get certain effects. And by that, I don't mean that I don't like this picture or I think it's a bad one, but I just want to see how I have progressed since then. And also, I enjoy painting fish. Looking back at this video really makes me want to paint some fish because I think it's fun. And just, I would love to have another go at painting fish. So if you have any ideas for fishes to paint, then leave them in the comments below. And if you have painted fish, I would absolutely love to see them. My Instagram username is the same as on here. It's 7is. And you can always send me a message or just tag me in cool artwork. I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love to see what you guys do and geek out over very cool colors or brushes or paper or anything like that. If you could also give this video a like and maybe even subscribe to my channel, I do have some more videos coming that I am currently editing. For example, I made a video about my favorite art materials, which is probably the next one that I want to upload. And I also painted the cafe again that can be already found on my channel. I was thinking about painting that cafe every year to kind of see the progression of my watercolor skills. And spoiler alert, I'm really happy with how much progress you can see over these two pictures, the one cafe that I painted last year around this time and then the one I painted this year. I'm actually really happy with how they turned out. And I think that was also a motivation boost I needed because sometimes it feels like I'm kind of stuck in my skills. But then if you see the progress, there's no denying that you're not stuck in your skills, which is very cool. We are getting smaller and smaller for the details on this picture now. And one thing as I'm rewatching this is that I think I want to focus more on the value of watercolors this year and kind of learn more about that. I think that is one of the things that I've done really well in this picture because if I remember correctly, I was trying to do a very limited color palette, meaning that the Iberian gudgeon was in the middle, I think. I don't remember the name of it. Oh, but I think I actually used the quinacridone gold for a lot of it and then another kind of brownish colors. So I don't think I used a ton of different colors, but I played around with the value of the quinacridone gold and the other brown tone that I had for it, if that makes sense. And I think that is something that I want to focus on more so this year because I feel like I'm actually not that good with playing around with the values. Same here with the Atlantic Bonito. A lot of it is painted in the neutral tint, just in varying values of the color. And I think I kind of wanna get back to this kind of skill level that I've showed here. I think with watercolor, it also kind of ebbs and flows because it's also so dependent on how you're feeling that day, the temperature of the room, if your watercolor is drying fast or slow. There's so much else that plays into it, and I really want to play or figure out the different circumstances more this year. So we are now starting to add the final lettering to this piece of art. So I'm adding the names of all of the fishies because no one would remember or know, I think, otherwise. And we're also adding a big title to it, and also kind of like little bubbles around the fish because I felt like the page otherwise would be looking kind of empty. And I really like how it's coming all together in the end. I think the color story worked extremely well for the page. I'm bringing in the blue from the bluefin tuna a little bit more with the little bubbles because it's the same shade of blue. And also with the lettering, I think it's nice to have the sort of warm toned fish in the middle and then the two cooler toned around it, but the two cooler toned also have yellow in their fins and on their body. So it's not like they're completely out of place. And I'm really happy with how this page turned out. And my parents also really liked it and they actually hung it up, which I think is the biggest compliment that I can get as an artist if people actually hang up the art that I made for them. So I am quite happy with that. Thank you so much for coming along on my little fish journey. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic day. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Happy painting!